All right. Solving radical equations. So the question for number one is the square root of what equals 3? The square root of 9 equals 3. That is correct. So here we know x equals 9. Now the question is, how do we get 9? By solving an equation. To undo a square root, you simply square. All right? It's like multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. All right, we're giving you another tool to solve a equation. To undo a square root, you square both sides. So the square and the square root do what to each other? They cancel out. That is correct. And 3 squared is obviously just what? 9. All right, it's really simple. Really simple. As you can see, it gets harder as we go down the page. All right, so let's take a look now at number 3. How do we undo a square root? So everybody puts a 2 or a square. That leaves me with 2x is equal to, what's 4 squared? 16. And what's 16 divided by 2? And there you have it. That's the answer. All right, so number 5, squaring both sides. I end up with 8x, be careful, is equal to, what's 2 squared? 4. What's 5 squared? 25. So keep in mind, this whole thing is being squared. Now, dividing by 8, when there is a fraction involved, dividing by 8, if I say dividing by 8, all right, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Yes. Multiplying by 1/8 will clear that out. Now, the reason why I say that is because I don't really need a calculator for that. All right. 4/8 can be 1 and 2. So I know x must have been 1/50th. All right, 1/50th. All right, anybody have any questions? All right, so 1, 3, and 5, the radical is isolated. All right, now when I get to 7, the radical is not isolated. So what do I have to do first? Add 3. That's exactly right. Of course, we don't put +3 and +3 anymore. We just write the square root of x is equal to what? 4. Then we square both sides. So if I square both sides, x equals what? Exactly. X equals 16. Anybody have any issue with that? All right. Over here. Come on now, this is embarrassing. 1 minus 2/3. What is 1 minus 2/3? I see some of you don't want to embarrass yourself by telling me the answer. What is 1 minus 2/3? How much? 1/3. Of course, it's 1/3. All right, because 1, in fact, is the same as 3/3. 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3. Now to undo a square root, I do what? Square both sides. So x is equal to what?
2/9.
What's 1 squared?
1. 0. I said 1.
1 never came out of your mouth. Go back and listen to the tape. The first thing you said was 2/9. Then you said 0/9. All right. We go next. All right. Now, number 11. All right. Again, it's already isolated. So now I just square both sides. So I get x over 3 equals what? 16. Come on, guys. 4 squared is 16. You don't need a calculator for that. Now we're undoing dividing by 3. So we what? Multiply by 3. So anybody know 16 times 3? 48. All right, that is the answer. That's how easy. Number 13. Square both sides. X plus 1 equals how much? 9. So X was equal to what? 8. Not very difficult. 15, what do I need to do first?
Get rid of the 5.
Divide by 5. You isolate the radical. We divide by 5. So everybody should be able to say the square root of X plus 1 equals 3. Now, how do I undo a square root? Square both sides. So X plus 1 equals how much? 9. And so X equals 8. All right. Now, 17. Again, we're isolating. What do I have to do first? Divide by 5. So I have square root 2x plus 1 equals 5. Squaring both sides. 2x plus 1 equals 25. Now, everybody should be able to look at that and say, well, I'm going to subtract 1 and then divide by 2. So we are all smart enough now to say x equals what? 12. I'm expecting you to just write down x equals 12. If you want to put minus 1, and then divide by, go ahead and do that. All right, but I would like everyone to know just x equals 12 from there. All right, so here, 19, square root of 5x over 4 is equal to what?
4 minus 4.
Stop. 10. Right, adding 2 to both sides. Now what? Square both sides. So I end up with 5x over 4 equals 100. Now to get rid of a fraction, we say multiply by the, so x is equal to, someone? You should divide first. 100 divided by 5 is what? 20 times 4.
80.
80. All right. Again, you're multiplying by the reciprocal. For those of you guys who can't see it, you can just do 4/5 over here. You should be dividing first. All right. 4/5. All right. Cancels. All right. 21. What do I do to both sides?
Square.
Square both sides. 2x plus 9 over 5 equals what? 9. Now what? What am I doing now? No. Which is multiply by 5. Right? We're multiplying by 5 because I want to get rid of the dividing by 5. So 2x plus 9 equals 45. Now what? Minus the 9. Very good. So 2x is equal to, and a final answer, x equals 18. Anybody have any issues? Yes, ma'am. Well, the 5s cancel out, right? You see it now? Okay, next one, a little bit harder. All right, we have to divide by 5 first. So the square root of x is equal to, what is that? 3 radical 2. Thank you very much. All right, now the hard part. Everybody's got to pay attention. Squaring both sides. Squaring both sides. That means I'm squaring both. So x is equal to, what's 3 squared? 9. What's the square root of 2 squared? 2. Right? And so 9 times 2 is what? 18. Everybody good with that? All right, a little bit harder now. All right. What do I have to do to both sides? Square, very good. So now I end up with 2x squared minus 5 equals, what's 11 squared? 121. Thank you very much. Now what do I need to do to both sides? Add 5. Thank you very much. 2x squared equals 126. Now what? Yep, we're going to divide by 2. So x squared equals 63. Now, in the past, we've solved quadratics. Everybody needs to look on the board. When we said, like, for example, x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0, we factored into x minus 4, x plus 3. And then we set them equal to 0. So we got x equals 4, x equals negative 3. So when there's a square, there's how many solutions? There are 2 solutions. That means there must be how many solutions here? 2 solutions. 2 numbers squared equals 63. How do I undo a square, do you think?
You square it.
Square root. All right. Just like to undo a square root, we do what? We square it. If I want to undo a square, I have to do what? Take the square root. So we're going to take the square root. Take the square root. Anybody have any issue with that so far? So now x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 63. All right, and I'll give you an example. Everybody look up. If I said, for example, x squared equals 9, what 2 values squared equal 9? 3 or what? 3 or negative 3. That's what that means. So when you take the square root with a variable, it's plus or minus. All right, now we got to think back before spring break. I ask you to break this thing down. All right, I have to break 63. What is it? Thank you very much. So the square root of 9 now is what? That's correct. So x is equal to plus or minus 3 radical 7. For those guys who are remembering, 63 is 9 times 7. The square root of 9 is 3. So that's why that came out as a 3. Anybody have any questions with that? All right, for 27, what do I have to do first? Divide by 2. So I have the square root. 3x squared minus 2 equals what? 5. Now what? Square. 3x squared minus 2 equals 25. Now what? 3x squared equals, and now what? So x squared equals 9. Exactly. So now what does x equal? Plus or minus what? Plus or minus what? 3. Yeah, square root of 9. Square root of 9 is what though? 3. All right, any questions with that? That was considered pretty hard. All right, let's knock out 29. What do I have to do to both sides? Square. All right, come on now. Square and square root cancel each other out. So 5x squared minus 36 equals
4x.
somebody help him.
Wait, square?
How much?
Just 2x.
No,
2x
4x
squared?
squared.
4x squared is correct. 4x squared. All right. Now I need to move thing around. All right, I got to put the x squareds together. So if I put the x squareds together, I'm going to subtract 4x squared. I'm going to add 36. That gives me x squared equals 36. And now what do I do to both sides? What do I do to both sides? Take the square root. All right, to undo a square, you take the square root. Now, what two numbers squared equal 36? Plus or minus what? I try to remember when I was figuring this out, the exponent tells you the number of solutions. So because it was x squared, I knew that there had to be two solutions. All right, here we go. All right, everybody put up here. This one is a hard one. All right. Everybody needs your attention on this one. All right, I'm squaring both sides. I'm squaring both sides. So the left side now is just what? X squared plus 1. Does everybody agree with that? Equals. Yeah, it equals 1 minus x squared. So I want you to remember 1 minus x squared is the same as 1 minus x times 1 minus x. So I have to multiply that out. All right, so please watch. This one, like I said, there's a lot of algebra here, a lot of algebra. So it's a good review problem. So x squared plus 1 equals 1 negative x plus x squared. X squared plus 1 equals 1 minus 2x plus x squared. Now, what happens to the 2x squareds? They cancel. And what happens to the two ones? So I have 0 equals negative 2x. And now if I divide by negative 2, x equals what? 0. X equals 0. After all that, it was just a 0. All right, now how do I know I'm right? Look up here. If I plug 0 in here, what's 0 squared? Plus 1. Square root of 1, 1. And what's 1 minus 0? There you have it. Very easy. Anybody have any questions? Yes, good for you.
Did you have to write out like 1 minus x twice? Or
Yeah.
instead of done like 1 minus x squared?
No, it's not the same, kiddo. When you square a binomial, you have to write it out twice, okay? All right, you have to do that. That's the mistake everybody makes. They just square each individual term and you're not doing that. All right, so 31 was the hard one. All right, here we go. 33. What do I have to do to both sides? Square them. So 3x squared minus 32 equals x squared. This one isn't so bad.
You also, repeat the question on 35.
What?
33 and 35 are the same question.
Thank you for that. Thank you. All right. Now move the x squared. Subtract x squared. Add 32. So now I have 2x squared equals 32. What do I need to do now? Divide by 2 first. So x squared equals what? 16. How many solutions are there again? 2. So x equals plus or minus 4. Okay. Now, before we go any further here, I actually have to go back because I made an error. All right, on 29. Go back to 29, everybody. And then I'm gonna highlight 33 for us. All right, please pay attention now. This is what's difficult. All right, please look up. All right. Now, there's this thing in math called an extraneous solution. All right. An extraneous solution just simply means that you did the problem correctly. Everything mathematically was correct, but it still doesn't solve correctly. All right. Now, what does that mean? Look what happens if I were to let x equal -6. Now, look, you're going to learn something and you can't daydream right now. All right. No time to daydream. You got to look up. If I let x equal -6, I'm going to plug -6 in. All right. Now, 5 times -6, you don't have to do this. Just stay with me. -36 squared is 36. 36 times 5 is 180. 180 minus 36 is 144. The square root of 144 is what? 12. It's not what? -12. So that's why it's considered an extraneous solution. So -6 is considered an extraneous solution. So the only actual answer here is what? Yes, the only answer is 6. Now, what's an easy way instead of having to check your work? Instead of having to check your work, please look up. Square roots can only be what? Positive. Square roots can only be positive. So if I plug a negative in for x, that's going to make it equal to a what? Negative. Can a square root equal a negative? No. If I say the square root of 9, you're never going to say it's -3. If I say the square root of 16, you don't say that's -4. Square roots are always positive. So a square root cannot equal a negative. All right. And that was my fault. All right. So there is an extraneous solution here. The only answer is 6. -6 is considered an extraneous solution. I'm not going to ask you that on the test. I'm not going to ask you to repeat extraneous. I'm just telling you when you get to higher level math, they will be discussing that. So when I get down to 33, can x be -4? No, that is an extraneous solution. So the only answer is what? 4. X equals 4. All right. The only time you have to worry about it is when it's equal to a variable. All right. Hopefully that made sense. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Colton's 33 and 35 were the same. All right. Here we go. Let's knock out 37 now. All right, this one is considered a little bit harder also. All right. So what do I do to both sides, please? Square both sides. You got to pay attention now. A lot of algebra here. X squared plus 6x equals, what's 4 squared? 16. Now, this is a quadratic. Quadratics have to be set equal to 0. So I can move the 16 over. When I move the 16 over, it becomes what? -16. So I want everybody to write down x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Now we need to factor. All right, let's see if you remember how to factor that. I'll give you a hint, 2 sets of parentheses. All right, someone tell me what the 2 factors are. Come on. Say it. So what are the factors though? I'm agreeing 8 and 2, but what goes in front? X and X. Very good. Now I want the 8 to be what? Positive, and the 2 to be what? Right, and let's just review that. All right, the reason that's true is because that's going to give me what? 8x, that's going to give me what? Negative 2x, and together that makes what? 6x, which is what we wanted. All right. And so now from there, we can just say x plus 8 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals negative 8 or x equals 2. All right, honestly, that's as hard as it gets. All right. Hopefully there's another one. All right, let's take a look at 39. All right, come on, guys. 39, what do I have to do to both sides? Square both sides. So I end up with 15x squared minus 12x equals, what's 9x squared? Good job, 81x squared. Is everybody okay with that? Now remember, I always want to keep the variable positive, so I'm going to throw it over this side. I'm going to throw this over here. So here I'm going to subtract 15x squared. Is that mine? Subtract 15x squared, then add 12x. Hello? Hello? All right, thank you. There we go. All right. So we subtract 15x squared and then we add 12x. Because it's a quadratic, we got to move everything over. So now we have 0 is equal to, what is that? 65x squared plus 12x. Is that correct? Some of you look at me like I'm crazy. 81 minus 15 is what? Is that 65?
No, it's 66.
That's what I said, 66. Thank you. I am crazy.
Give me a good day.
All right, is that okay? 66x squared plus 12x. Now we have a GCF, please. GCF. What's common with 66 and 12? 6. I like it. 6 what? There's a common 6x. When we factor out a 6x, I end up with 11x plus 2. Everybody good with that? So 6x equals 0, 11x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals 0 or x is equal to negative 2 over 11. However, I notice up here that it's equal to, come on, eyes up. It's equal to an x. Can x be negative? No, because your square root cannot be equal to a negative. So the negative 2/11 is your what? Extraneous solution. Your only answer is what? X equals 0. All right, that is your only answer. All right. Now, this is from the day you were before spring break. All right, so I just want to go back and review a couple of these. All right, just to make sure. All right, we're in good shape. All right, so 41. All right, what does 48 break down to? 6 times 8, but neither one of those is a perfect. Thank you very much. 16 times 3, x to the 12th, y to the 10th. Those are even. All right, so those are good. What's the square root of 16? 4. What's the square root of x to the 12th? What's the square root of y to the 10th? And what's left behind? Radical 3. Perfect. All right, come on. Review with me. Review. All right, here we go. 80. Remember what 80 was?
4 times 20?
4 times 20 is good, but there's a better one.
8 times 10? No.
16 times 5. All right, 80 was 16 times 5. Try to remember that. What's 45? And what is 20? 4 times 5. All right, let's see what you're doing. Square root of 16 is what? Outside there is a, so what does it become? 24 radical 5. Square root of 9. So that becomes perfect. Square root of 4. All right, so my final answer is, thank you very much, 18 radical 5. All right, now we're going to distribute 3 radical 5 times this and then times this. What's 3 times 2? Radical 5 times radical 5. 5, very nice. And now 3 radical 5 times negative 4. And 6 times 5 is 30 minus 12 radical 5. Very nice. That is your answer. All right, now the hard one, 47. So you write it twice. 6 minus 3 radical 7. 6 minus 3 radical 7. Come on now. Good review. Remember, you do the work. 6 times 6. 36. Smiley face. How much is that? Yes, negative 18 radical 7. Smiley face. How much? Negative 18 radical 7. And then multiplying this. 3 times 3. Radical 7 times radical 7. Come on, guys. That's what I need you to be able to do. All right. Square roots are all over all the entrance exams. You got to be good at it. All right. Now, what's 9 times 7? All right, 63 plus 36.
That'll be 99.
Minus,
Really? Yeah.
everybody good with that? All right, one more. 49. Square them both. What's negative 3 squared? No, not negative 9. 9. Square root of 7 squared. 9 times 7. 63. All right. Oh, there is more.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, you got lucky. All right, finish up. Evens.